Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. Welcome to the show, Plant-Centered listener. My name is Ashley, and I am your host today. Today, I have a story from a very special guest who walked into her doctor's office, had been struggling with eczema for quite a while, and her doctor opened up a textbook, showed her a picture of someone who was having a severe case of eczema, told her case was not severe enough, and basically sent her on her way. She went through steroid cream after steroid cream. She tried a lot of different modalities and nothing seemed to work. So you can kind of see where the story's going, right? I'll let Chanelle tell the rest, but I do want to introduce you to Chanelle, who now is a registered holistic nutritionist, functional hormone educator, and founder of Evergreen Nourish Co., which is an online nutrition counseling practice with a focus on hormone health and transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle. Chanelle resides in Manitoba, Canada, and she graduated from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition in 2022 with a diploma in natural nutrition with distinguished merit and a holistic culinary certification. This spring in 2024, she will also be graduating with a bachelor's degree of environmental studies in environmental health from the University of Manitoba. And we talk about some of the things that she's learning in her environmental health classes, and some of them were a little shocking. Chanelle began her own plant-based journey in 2018 when going through health issues, which she discusses further, and this led her to pivot her career to combine her passions for both overall health and the environment. Please join me in welcoming Chanelle and her story. I'm curious because I know that you have sort of a backstory as to why you went plant-based and everything. So I would love for you to kind of just give us an idea of like what kicked off this journey for you.
I feel like for me, it was pretty interesting because I almost had like a health journey that was going parallel with this environmental journey. Literally, like as I was having all these health issues, I saw a naturopath and I was told to cut out certain foods because I had a lot of inflammation in my body. If I take a step back further, actually, so in 2018, I was 25. I already had been struggling with eczema for a long time. And I had sort of started a health journey, trying to eat better. I was not a nutritionist yet. And I decided I also wanted to go off the birth control pill. I had been on it for a decade for, acne. Like even before I was sexually active, I was told to go on it. And I just started like learning about, how that impacts, your fertility and just like mood and everything. I had a lot of anxiety in my early 20s. So I was like, you know what? I'm done. I just, I was married. I just, whatever, like I just want to go off of it. And when I did that, my entire body just like went a little bit haywire. I mean, I had like inflammation in my neck, like I was like red and had itchy eczema all over the place. My doctor was not helping me at all with, all they were doing were giving me steroid creams, which also were contributing, to even more eczema, and it would just come back, with a vengeance. So then I had cut out, like, the naturopath told me, like, try to cut out, inflammatory foods. So like red meat and eggs and dairy. I had never, been restricted previously with any food. I didn't have food allergies. I grew up with a mother with food allergies though, so I was a bit familiar with it, but it was tough. And at the same time, I was trying to buy more locally. I was learning a lot about climate change and the environment. So that was about in December of 2018. And then a few months later, I was watching all these documentaries and I was like, you know what? I'm really only eating like honey and fish out of like the animal products.
Yeah.
So I was like, why? Like, why? I don't really need to be, because I was really aligning, with the vegan movement. I've always been really into environmentalism. So I decided to take the leap. That spring, I cut out fish and, honey I wasn't having much of anyway. So I became vegan in 2019. And
nice.
yeah, so it was pretty interesting how those kind of, came about at the same time, my environmental journey and my health journey. And I did eventually, like, bring back a lot of the foods, but not the animal products. I was like off like gluten and tomatoes, like all the nightshades, the typical things that they get you to try to cut out. And I don't know really if that was helping. I think I just was, had to go through that cycle from having taken steroids for a lot of my life from the creams and everything. And I had, kind of like the steroid withdrawal that they call. So I had to just go through that, and, heal my gut as well, because I had a lot of gut issues as well from antibiotics and all the things, and obviously the steroids too, throughout my life. So that was something I had to work on. And yeah, it eventually got way better. I lost my period when I went off the birth control pill for over a year. I got my period back.
Really?
So yeah, it's quite interesting. And then in 2020, I decided I wanted to go back to school and become a nutritionist. So that is how that all happened.
Yes, it sounds like a whirlwind of a couple of years to like get
Yeah.
there. Before December 2018, did any of your doctors or like the research that you came upon, if you did any, like indicate that, hey, the food that you're eating might be contributing to some of these issues?
No, like the whole reason why I had seeked out like alternative practitioners was because really the doctors were basically like, there's nothing like to
Yep.
do. I literally had a dermatologist one time. It was quite debilitating. Like it would, ooze. It was on my thighs. I would be depressed from it because of all that inflammation going on in my brain too. And the dermatologist, literally opened up a page of a textbook of like a hospitalized case and was like, this is what a severe case is like. You're not a severe case. And I was like, this is literally
Wow.
impacting my daily life. Like I'm depressed, like, like it's hard to know how to dress because like of, my skin is like not okay. And it was, yeah, very frustrating to have that type of treatment. So that's when I started doing a bit more of my own research. I did find stuff about hormones of the birth control pill, and that's kind of what started the whole journey. Because yeah, until then, I was kind of just living my life with anxiety and with like the PMS and all the things, and thinking this is fine.
Right.
It's not fine, but I guess this is just how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
um
This is my life, basically.
yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's why that happened. And then yeah, fast forward 5 years later, and I'm a hormone nutritionist and helping folks eat more plants and fix their hormone issues as well. So it's kind of been really cool, the whole journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but also fortunate in a way that you have to kind of go through some of those trials and tribulations to kind of get to where
Yeah,
you're at now for you to figure out, oh, this is my passion, my purpose, because I sort of like had to walk through the valley in order to get to like the mountaintop to be able to help other people sort of overcome what I was going through in a way.
absolutely. Yeah.
And to be maybe that sounding board too that maybe you didn't receive with some of your healthcare providers that you were like really looking after. And I know so many people listening to this show who have been on the show before have a similar story where it's like they either had to go above and beyond to figure out what the heck was wrong with them, or they had to seek out other medical providers, or even both, to get to this place where they were able to heal or start their healing journey.
Absolutely. Like, I just feel like, I grew up, my mom, health is one of her values as well. And, we always advocated for ourselves, but a lot of people don't know, how to do that, or don't have access to be able to do that. And I just think back about like, if I hadn't advocated for myself and done my own research, I have a background in health. I've been a dental hygienist for 8 years. So I had that under my belt. But for a lot of people, that doesn't come naturally. They don't know how to seek help. And then maybe I wouldn't be where I am now, right? I know I
Yeah.
wouldn't be, because when you don't advocate for yourself, you don't have, other options. So you just feel really stuck in that cycle.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, congrats on almost celebrating your 5 year anniversary of being vegan. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
How was that transition for you? I mean, at one point, you had cut out a lot of different foods, including nightshades and different things, and you started introducing those back in. It sounds like those and gluten, right?
Yeah, I only started eating gluten again like last year because I wasn't sure. I was like, what if it is why my eczema is better, right? Like, you always have kind of that thought, even though I'm not celiac, I've been tested a few times. Yeah, so it was interesting because then when you're vegan and something else, then it makes it even tougher sometimes to find options, at restaurants and everything. It was definitely, like trial and error, trying to find things that are tasty. And I mean, it's come such a long way with the vegan options available in the grocery stores. Like, it's a lot better now for sure.
Yeah. How are things up in your area?
Yeah, so I'm in Manitoba, Canada. So the biggest city is Winnipeg, and it's actually pretty good. Like, we've got, a lot of different grocery store chains that have, vegan cheeses and milks, and lots of, like meat alternatives and things like that too. I don't think it's as good as in the States from what I hear and from like what I see online. Yeah, I mean, I eat primarily whole foods as well. Like we do eat some, processed stuff for sure, but we actually have in Manitoba this group of organic farms that grow like pulses and legumes and everything. And so every year, it's actually the end of the month. We're recording this in January. So at the end of the month, I'm picking up my CSA for grains and legumes from
Nice.
Manitoba farmers. So it's really awesome that, that lasts almost a whole year for my husband and I. So we get like, black beans and oats or, gluten-free oats too for people that need it, gluten-free oats and different flours, different corn products like corn grits and things like that. So yeah, it's really great to have that as an option. They also sell their products in some grocery stores locally as well. So yeah, I feel good about that, but that's where we get most of our legumes and everything. So
Yeah, it's nice to be able to support your local farmers.
absolutely, yeah.
So that one box that you get at the end of January, that will last you for the entire year.
Mostly, there's a few things that we have to top up. So, like, they don't have chickpeas, so we get chickpeas separately at the grocery store. So, things like that. Like, obviously, we have to buy all the fresh food as well. But in terms of like legumes and like flour, we don't need to buy at all separately, which is really nice. They have lots of lentils in there, lots of, a few different kinds of beans. They rotate their crops, right? So, it's not always the same every year. So, yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have that available.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. For anyone listening too, I mean, that's a great idea if you do have some local farmers in your area who provide a CSA box or provide some sort of produce box. Sometimes it's nice to have that, whether you get it once a month, every other week, or even like once a quarter, just to supplement the foods that you already buy at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Which, fun fact, maybe. So I went to Iowa to making sure it was Iowa, not Idaho. It was Iowa, I'm pretty sure, to visit with Quaker Oats. And what I didn't
Ooh,
know was that all of our oats, or all of Quaker's oats, come from Canada. They are all grown there.
okay.
Like apparently as far up
Interesting.
as you can go without being in the I don't know, wilderness, tundra,
Tundra.
bush type thing. Yeah. So that was
Cool.
pretty fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that because I just assume a lot of those places in the States, like that are agriculture heavy, would have oats too. But like, maybe they just grow better up here. I don't know.
Apparently, I mean, at least that's what Quaker does. So it was really neat to
Cool.
find out. They just ship them down, by the semis and like these big train. What I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what those are called, train cars, basically. And yeah, that's where we get all of our oats, which I think is pretty fascinating. So,
Awesome.
fun fact there. Well, I know people listening, and sometimes I get this question even on social media, is what was it like even taking the certification or going through the courses to get your certification and to become a registered nutritionist? Because I know there are people out there who are curious about, even in the States, taking a nutritionist certification. And there are questions like, well, if I'm vegan or if I'm passionate about plant-based eating, is this something that is maybe going to kind of go against how I feel? But how was it for you? And what was your program like too?
Yeah, so I studied at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. They are the biggest school across Canada. They have several campuses, and then I did the online campus technically. And it was quite good. There's 18 different courses that you have to go through, so you do get like a really wide range of education. There's also one called Eco Nutrition, which was my favorite. Like we read a book all about like the blue zones type of thing and the centenarians and all the things. So it was quite cool. No, I think I'm mixing up two courses actually. That was the one about aging. Hang on.
Okay.
There was a different book. I forgot the title of it, but there was a different book. And actually, that one went over like CAFOs and different things like that, which was really interesting. I know you being from North Carolina are obviously very familiar with that.
Yes, which that stands for confined animal feed operations for anyone who doesn't know. Yes. Yep.
So that was interesting already. I was already vegan, so I already knew a lot about that. But obviously, yeah, the aging one was really great too because they went over these blue zones, which obviously are also plant-based areas. Yeah, it felt really like validating because in a way, in my head, I was like, even if I don't, go through with like working as a nutritionist, I just feel like this is really interesting for me to learn because of everything I've been through and to get that validation. Like, is this the right thing to do? Like when you just watch documentaries and do your own research, sometimes you're kind of like is this right? Like, because then you hear the opposite views and you're like, I don't know anymore. So just getting, the validation that like, yes, like plants are full of nutrients, and you can have a healthy, sustainable plant-based diet. Even like the first book, like it was like Intro to Nutrition 1, and I opened the book and it was like something about the environment was like in the preface, and I was just like, I
Wow.
sent a picture of that to my friend Roxanne, and I was like, oh my god, this feels so aligned, like day one.
Yes. Yes.
So
I would hope that they're
yeah,
talking about that more and more. I went to school a long time ago, like over a decade ago. And so that wasn't as prevalent. And neither was even talking about plant based eating, just because that term wasn't even used very often back
right.
then. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear that it sounds like it's being talked about more, which is just fantastic because, yeah, it needs to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like this course, even though it wasn't 100% plant based, it was still helpful. Like you still came out with it, obviously with your degree, but it didn't impede on you, on your morals, or like you being vegan or like being pro plant based.
Not at all. Yeah. And there was even a second part of the program that was like a culinary training. And actually, one of the instructors in there is a vegan nutritionist himself. So it was pretty good because all of the culinary training was actually pretty much plant based. So yeah, just learning different techniques that now I can, teach clients as well. So yeah, so it was really great that way.
Yeah. And like you were saying too, like even if you didn't come out practicing and starting your practice, it was still a helpful course. I know some people, even listening, have thought about maybe taking like the Cornell course, which is through Colin Campbell, just because some of these courses you do learn so much. Like sometimes there's only so much research and so many documentaries we can watch. It's nice to go through a course and learn from the best of the best in the plant-based world just to further our education. So I know those options are always out there for anyone who wants to kind of expand on their knowledge, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some common concerns or questions that you receive from your ideal clients or some of the people that you work with?
It's funny because I actually kind of shifted my ideal client over the, almost 2 years that I've been doing this. I did start wanting to do more of like plant-based coaching, which I don't know if it's just in my area, but it hasn't been like that fruitful. So I did shift to working primarily in the hormone space, which, obviously with my own health routine was a really big passion of mine. So about a year ago, I started with that being more my ideal client, just somebody who is, going through hormone imbalances, period issues, things like that, wanting to conceive or already pregnant and just wanting to improve their nutrition status and lifestyle, which is really awesome. But yeah, I actually didn't start off with that as my niche. I was actually more in the plant-based space. But now I feel like I kind of realize, plant-based thinking kind of should be applied to every niche in a way.
Yeah.
Definitely, no matter what someone struggles with, it is, eating more plants. Like, here are the plants that will get you the nutrients that you maybe are lacking. So I do, kind of do that type of work now. But I do still see some clients that are in my, plant-based program, which is Evergreen Evolution. So right now I have a lady who's trying to lower her cholesterol. I have somebody who's pre-diabetic. So that one has like even more support, just like one-on-one support, because they are making so many changes. Whereas my hormones program, there's like a big video component to it as well. Yeah, so I really love how it's, holistic. I am a holistic nutritionist that touches on a lot of different areas of your lifestyle, sleep, stress, all the things, plus obviously the nutrition counseling as well. So yeah, so it's been really fun to kind of, I'm pretty new when you think about it. It's only been a couple years, and I'm giving myself grace for that because I'm still kind of getting, my feet wet and everything. But it's been really awesome to be able to do this work. Like, it's literally my dream job. So it's been really amazing. I never thought I would be a business owner, actually. So even when I was in nutrition, like studying it, I was like, yeah, I'll just like work in a clinic. But I really wanted to really like, I was like, okay, if I'm doing this, I'm going like all the way. I was like, I want to align what I'm doing every day. Otherwise, I'll end up in the same cycle where you're just seeing like client after client after client, and you don't feel like you get to give them everything that you want to give them. Like, it's gonna be that type of, day-to-day job. So I was like, I guess I'm doing this, I guess I'm opening up my own practice.
Heck yes.
And being able to align it to my values of environmentalism and eating plant-based and all the things. Not all my clients are fully plant-based by any means. It's probably like 75% vegans, vegetarians, and then 25% not. yeah, pretty much exactly how I wanted to set it up from the start. I was like, I'm doing it the right way, so that I feel really aligned in what I do every day.
Yes. Yep. And I could not agree more that it's good to give yourself permission to also shift kind of who you're working with or who your ideal client is or what you're passionate about, because that is just going to light you up all the more in your business. I just feel like that's so important. So I think it's wonderful that you kind of started out in one space, but you sort of were open to receiving, hey, I'm kind of passionate about hormones and women's health and different things. And I'm going to allow myself to also encompass that into my practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt called, like I took additional training to be like a functional hormone educator, and that just really pulled me in that direction where I was like, okay, yes, I feel like this is even more aligned and I can still do, the plant-based coaching on the side as well, all within my one practice, not having to be yeah, so focused on just like the veganism part, which I obviously love and am, but it's just maybe the world's not ready yet. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Yep, but I can definitely relate. I mean, so when I first was going through my program, I wanted to be a couple different things, a sports dietitian and a beef lobbyist. So I wanted to
Ooh.
promote eating beef. And I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? But I was raised on an Angus cattle farm, and so like that
Yeah.
was my passion. And yeah, that has shifted a big 180. So I definitely can relate to just kind of just shifting some things around. Maybe not that drastically, but just being open to kind of what comes your way. And especially when you go through healing and a health issue, I feel like that just kind of deepens your roots and wanting to do something that's similar to what you've gone through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It just feels, when you're able to relate to the client on that level, it's just probably feels so much more genuine too, like from the client's perspective. You definitely feel like more of a connection to the client and have so much more, experience with it as well. So that's been really great.
Yeah, good. So, is there any advice that you would give to someone who is kind of just struggling in the areas that, like, of your expertise, whether it's related to hormone related concerns or even infertility issues? Like, is there any kind of piece of advice that you commonly give out that would be beneficial to our listeners?
A lot of the population is on the birth control pill for usually years, and for a lot of people they were never told that uses up a lot of nutrients, depletes nutrients in their bodies when they are on the pill. So even if they have come off of it or want to come off of it, oftentimes there's going to be symptoms because you have to make sure that you are nourished, and even for that your gut health needs to be on par, because if your gut health's not good, you're not necessarily absorbing the nutrients as well either. So yeah, so definitely the first thing we'll do is, they have questions about, how can I regulate my periods, but we have to definitely look at what their gut health looks like, and what their nutrients are looking like, because if they've never, supplemented or eaten lots of foods in like zinc, for example. Zinc is a big one that the pill depletes and is related to a lot of different hormone things, like even like skin health and making progesterone and everything. So if zinc is very, very low, especially in plant foods, there's pumpkin seeds, but it's not in huge amounts. In plant foods, people will say like eat oysters or like eat
Oh,
beef liver.
yeah. Oh,
So so definitely zinc is a big one that we'll go over, in terms of if they ask how can I even start, it's like, well, maybe you need a little bit of help from a supplement or two to make sure that even your vitamin D levels, you need to make sure that you're getting what you need. Living in Canada, we don't have as much sunlight. We're in the northern hemisphere, so definitely vitamin D is a big one too. So we do go over their entire medical history and what their food looks like day to day, and go from there, because for some people it's stress, for some people it's the nutrients, for most I would say it's multiple things, right? So looking at it from a holistic perspective of the whole body versus just focusing on your sex hormones themselves, or just your reproductive system, definitely helps to balance everything and get results too.
yeah. It sounds like you're getting like a much clearer picture or like a big picture of what's going on versus like just focusing on one little thing when it can be tied to so many other things that are going
Mm-hmm.
on in the body or even
Absolutely.
externally. If
Yeah.
someone is working with you and they do want some sort of like contraception, if you don't mind sharing, what do you often recommend that maybe is something that's a bit more natural?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, definitely some people are wanting to go off the pill but don't necessarily want a baby, right? So, obviously this comes up because, I'm 30. A lot of people my age are either like ready to have kids or like not ready to have kids or not having kids at all. So definitely, we discuss this, and the main thing I would recommend to them is condoms, and then also tracking your fertility. So it's become so much more available. I feel like there's so many apps I see now, and I'm like, oh, I haven't even heard of this one yet, to track like your temperature. So they have different thermometer like bands and stuff like that you can have on that tracks your basal temperature, so that you have a clue. It's nothing is 100%, neither is the pill, but to have a clue of when you're ovulating, because it'll track when you have a little jump in your temperature. And then you kind of know what your window is, your fertile window, so that okay, well, I'm just gonna abstain, or I'm gonna use a condom those few days, so that you're able to prevent pregnancy. And then obviously everybody's different. Like some people choose to have a copper IUD, and I think no matter what, like every form of birth control will have pros and cons. So that's obviously something that we discuss together. And obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I don't prescribe or anything. So they obviously are encouraged to discuss it with their doctor if they do have a certain concern about the medication itself. But in terms of like more natural options, then definitely tracking your temperature and condoms would be like the best bet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's nice too, that you're able to have this open dialogue about contraception versus being like, oh, the pill is like the one and only thing that you're supposed to do, or get an IUD type thing. Like there are other options out there that you can explore,
Mm-hmm.
and that won't have as much of an impact, if any, on your hormonal health or on your health in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know that you're also working on your environmental health degree. I'm curious how that's going, and if you could kind of give us a couple things that you've learned that you think would be really helpful.
So I started studying that when I was still in nutrition. I was like probably 3/4 done my nutrition program, and I kind of realized that I wanted to have like the environmental background as well, because there was that eco nutrition course in my nutrition program at CSNN, but there, I wanted more. So I was like, you know what, I have already some university courses under my belt. So I looked into my local university what I would need to actually complete a degree in environmental studies, and my focus area is environmental health. So I've been part-time studying on the side as well this entire time as I'm building my business. So I'm wearing a lot of hats. It's been a lot. At the end of April 2024, I'll be done my courses. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. I love learning. Like I think lifelong learning is so important. And with environmental health being my focus area, I got to learn a lot more about, toxicology and basically just how our environment is impacting our health. So those courses directly went into my like hormones program. I definitely already incorporated so much of that knowledge in there, because, we think of food, we think of stress, but sometimes we forget that, other things in our environment. There's, a lot of chemicals in our food. There's a lot of other things, plastics that we're exposed to all the time that have environmental impacts, but also health impacts. So I really feel like this degree kind of tied my two passions together. Yeah, so already been incorporating that knowledge on how, even just endocrine disruptors in the environment can impact your health and everything. So yeah.
If you don't mind sharing, what are some common endocrine disruptors?
So one that most people have heard of is BPA, which is in a lot of plastics. A lot of plastics now will say like BPA free, but a lot of the time there's just like other similar compounds, like similar chemical structures to BPA in it still. So
great.
In general, plastics and food shouldn't really go together, especially if you're heating anything. Or like drinking out of a plastic bottle in a hot car. There's been links with like breast cancer actually with that. There's also phthalates in a lot of skincare as well, which is a pretty common one. Phthalates are in a lot of things, and that's another one that can disrupt your hormones. So a lot of the time, those compounds can basically go onto your cell and act like a hormone. So sometimes that makes your body think, oh, I don't need to make as much of this hormone because it has a similar shape to the hormone. Or sometimes then your body thinks, wow, there's a lot of hormones in here, and we'll start doing something different. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
How so many compounds in our environment impact us. And even just like air pollution, things in the air impacts us as well. And with climate change, that is all changing as well. Things are getting worse in terms of the air quality and everything, and even water quality. So it's very interesting. And definitely
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things too, like in fish, because they have a lot of fatty tissue, they absorb a whole bunch of these compounds into their flesh. And then if you eat that flesh, then you're getting all those compounds into your own flesh.
Yeah.
And that has impacts as well. So that was really, really, again, validating for me to learn about all of this and be like, this is exactly what I'm passionate about. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Yep. And our oceans are nowhere near as clean as they used to be. So this is what it's hard to explain, like why fish oil. People think it's so healthy, quote healthy. It's often, recommended by doctors and different things. But it's like, I think a lot of people just don't realize that there is a lot of contaminants in fish oil, and
Yeah,
you're better off doing algae oil or something that's like sustainably grown and sourced and all that stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Oh my goodness. Well, I am so excited for you. I'm incredibly thrilled just that you were able to go to school, pursue your passion, create this business that you didn't think you were going to create, and be a business owner. You're doing a lot right now, and it sounds just really incredible. So, yeah,
Thank you
excited
so
for you.
much.
So, if
Thank you.
someone wants to connect with you, or maybe they're in like the Winnipeg area where you live and would love to work with you, which, by the way, can anyone across Canada work with you?
Yeah, so because my practice is fully online, I actually see clients in the States as well. So
All
anywhere
right.
across Canada, worldwide, technically, most clients find me online, especially through Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram at Chanelle Lagasse. It's ChanelleLaGasse. And you can also check out my website, www.evergreennourishco.com.
Wonderful. And we'll include those links in the show notes. So if you're interested in connecting with Chanelle, you can easily access her. Thank you, Chanelle, so much for coming on and sharing your story. Appreciate you. And I guess I'll just catch you on Instagram.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Ashley. You're super inspiring to me. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Until next time, keep thriving.